Welcome to Ivory Blush Roses. Today we're going to take a look at my studio. I've spent the last week and a half or so refurbishing it. So we're going to take a look from the old with the pink theme based on my quilt to its new cream and green theme, which is truthfully much more to my liking. I'm much more excited to be in my studio now. So here, let's take a quick step back in time and take a look at this studio the way it used to be. I based the decoration off of the pink quilt on the wall, which was my Crazy Quilt Journal project for 2015, and I chose the rug, and then the curtain was made using fabric I had in similar colors. So at this point, when we're looking at this studio, it's gotten kind of cluttered and messed up. I've been working quite a bit and just haven't taken the time to refurbish things. And I found that it was also becoming the place in the house where I was stashing anything I didn't really want to have out in the rest of the house. So there's extra furniture, there's painting supplies and easels and some craft supplies that there was really no better room for. Just lots of different things. You can see you've got stool, those are my painting packs there. Some paintings I've been working on, and the lovely Crazy Quilt Journal quilt. I really enjoy the quilt. I was so happy to have it, and I loved having it up for a while, but it was a step out of my comfort zone to stitch in those colors, and I found living with those colors to be very difficult for me. I definitely preferred the lighter color. But even the shelves, even though everything is moderately organized, it just was feeling cluttered and just hard to deal with. I've got bins and boxes of stuff everywhere. There's Thomas in his favorite spot next to the heater. Projects. There's stuff everywhere. And I found that the color and the clutter was actually keeping me out of the room. I was not wanting to spend time in there, and thus things were getting a little bit behind. My desk area serves not only as my stitching space, but it's my office space as well. So there's a lot of stuff that happens in here, and it was just a little bit too much. So now the new studio with a new carpet in cream and kind of a pale gray. I moved in one of my first Crazy Quilt pieces that I did, this cream and white Crazy Quilt that's on the wall. It's been hanging over my bed, but I think I like it in here better. I've got some new curtains, and I've done a pretty massive reorganization of everything. As you've seen with my thread reorganization, I've hung some extra picture frames up on the wall, and neatened things up and removed all the stuff that doesn't need to be in this room. And my workstation is much neater now. Things are a little better organized, so hopefully that will help. And new curtains at the window with one of my favorite vintage lace panels. So it's just a much happier space, and I've been finding that in the few days since I finished this, I've spent most of every day in this room working on things. I've gotten some projects completed, little things that just needed finishing, and I'm just so much happier with it. So let's take a little closer look now at some of the organization. We've got my bins of thread. We've looked at a lot of this here in the last video, and we'll take a little bit more detailed look at these things as we go. My buttons and things. So this is the top of the shelf, these little wooden boxes. This has my little push pins that I use for the embroidery frame to hold the fabric on. This box has small embroidery hoops in it, and these are these wonderful vintage boxes, which I just love. Got some old jars filled with mother of pearl buttons, some greenery. And then we have a bin with silk ribbon. These are the extras that are not on cards. And then this one is my basket of miscellaneous embroidery threads. This little basket holds my tiny iron and some sewing machine supplies. Then my lovely organized carded embroidery threads and ribbons. And the boxes below contain some various things. There's little boxes to cover. There's tools, there's sequins, bits and bobs, rickrack and wired ribbon, some templates. Got pearls and buttons and fabric flowers. And these are my baskets and trays that I use to hold my projects when I'm working on them. And the bins below that, here's my pearl cotton bins. And also the one with all the regular embroidery floss. And then in the corner here I have my tatting supplies and some darning thread. And then this selection of boxes is all filled with carded lace. And I love it having it that way. It makes it easy to see what I have. And then I have some scraps of fabric. There's velvet, cotton, silk, and then a lot of lace bits. These are small pieces. And then up here we have my kind of bead supply. So I always have Little Bunny and my favorite flowers. And so I have 3 of these bead trays. And then most of my beads are in these round containers. They're my favorite. I don't have quite enough to do everything, so that's why I have a mix of things. And then I have all these fabric bins. And then below that I have felt, my cutter lace, and linens. Oh, there's Thomas. He's napping by the heater. That's his favorite spot. And then I have projects to work on and things I've finished. And then up on top of this cart, I have this wonderful old sewing basket that I found a few years ago with this gorgeous blue silk lining. It's got some favorite lace and bits in it. There's some beaded pieces from the 1920s that I find fascinating. And this has my extra beads that don't fit in what I have. So some old jewelry to be taken apart and used for beads. And then this is beading thread and wire, some beading mat, and then I actually have 2 empty bins, which is a pretty amazing thing for me. And then on these shelves, I have all of my craft books, so there's sewing, knitting, crazy quilting, and then lots of embroidery, a few other things. There's some more beads, my blog books. These are some project bins. We'll be taking a look at those probably in one of the next videos. And then I have some nature bits and some quilt blocks. There's some other tools and paintbrushes. And then I have some baskets up on the top. And those I keep knitting projects. The suitcase has some mementos in it, like stuffed animals and things from when I was growing up that I want to keep. Behind the curtain, this shelf contains a lot of my art supplies. It tends to look pretty messy and overwhelming, so the curtain just kind of neatens things up. But it's canvases and paints and brushes and sketchbooks. And then some frames waiting for paintings. This old cabinet was from an adopted grandmother of mine. She was quite short, and her husband made this for her. It was a kitchen cabinet. And it's got a fun feature I'll show you in a minute. But I keep all my sewing stuff in here. There's pins and needles and tape measures. Have all my sewing thread. And then I have all my scissors and rotary cutters. This drawer has things like bias tape and hooks and eyes and buckles. This has interfacing, and then there's some machine pearl cotton in there. And then this bottom section, I keep some boxes that have things like postcards and pictures of art that I like. And then this is the fun feature. Because she was so short, working at the counter was hard, so she liked to sit on a little stool, and he made this pull-out cutting board that was at her height, that was much more comfortable for her. And here's Thomas wandering around.
What you doing, Thomas?
He wants his belly rubbed. That's what he's looking for. So behind the door, the little Lisa plaque at the top my mom painted when I was a little girl. I have all my pearl cotton threads on the hoops hanging behind the door where I can see them. And then I have my little tins of bead mix, and there's embroidery needles, and I've got fabric marking pens and watercolor pencils, and then all my favorite fat quarters, mostly batiks, and then there are some Japanese taupe fabrics in there as well. Now a closer look at this is my stitching desktop, and I have a bulletin board behind with some inspiring pictures, my little basket of most commonly used necessities for stitching. And then I've got the computer workstations, so I've got three computers there. They're often all going at the same time. My sewing machine with a nice view out the window. This is a small room, only 11 feet square, so I've really put a huge amount of stuff in this tiny space. The light colored carpet and the lighter decor definitely makes the room feel bigger and more open and much more comfortable for me to work in. The pink and the multicolored carpet was getting to feel very claustrophobic to me. So I'm really happy with the changes that I've made, and I'm spending most of my time in here. I really love it. So thanks for coming along on this studio tour. Here's a few more pictures to share with you that just give some glimpse of some of the different parts of the room. There's the book corner with my wonderful paper IKEA light up above it. My main crazy quilt supply storage. Beads. The greenery. Those wonderful boxes of embroidery thread that make my heart happy. And the greenery makes my heart happy as well. It's calm and peaceful. And my jars of mother of pearl buttons, which I love. I use one chair and I just move it from station to station as I need it. Another look behind the door. Those beautiful colors of pearl cotton. Doesn't Thomas' photograph so much prettier against this carpet than the other one? Thanks so much for coming along on my studio tour. I'm really happy with the results, and I'd love to hear what you think about it in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe, click on the bell to be notified of new episodes, and give me a thumbs up. Thanks again. Happy stitching. I'll see you in the next video.